Welcome back to the Creators Leverage Guild podcast. I am your host, Mike, and if you're new here, welcome. We're glad to have you with us. I am joined today by my trusty sidekick, Mr. Ben Fair. Ben, how are we doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. Just waiting for reporting to fix itself.
Oh my goodness. We are going to dive into that too today because that's something that I want. We have no answers, but we want to express our feelings. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wait a second, did I just click on the right podcast? I want to go ahead and reassure you that yes, you absolutely did. If you missed the last podcast we put out a week ago, we announced that we are now officially going under a new name. We launched a new community within the Circle platform. And with that, we decided to take the podcast and run that alongside with the new community. So it's still the same conversations you guys are used to having, just under one new umbrella. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. I think we've got some questions that we'd like to answer that we keep seeing pop up in various communities. Let's go ahead and dive in. What's on the agenda first for today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking all about free samples and going over our own journeys with them, how we've approached them, and how it's evolved over time. So I'll go ahead and start off. My first free sample that I did, I remembered the feeling of being so excited to receive something for free, and it's a super random product. It was a fish bowl water pump, and I don't have a fish bowl. I don't have fish, but they wanted to send me it, and it's like this little tiny thing, and it was $10 or whatever, and they also were willing to pay me $10. So I was ecstatic, and I even went out and bought a little fish bowl, so I had something to record it in, so it actually made sense, but I didn't go out and buy fish. So I actually spent some money just to make this video. That's how excited I was. That's a common thing. People are so excited to receive free products, and everyone gets that way. And then over time, it kind of starts to dull out a little bit. That product itself, the company was asking me for my sales report at the end of every month, so they really wanted to see if the video I was making was actually selling, and the product itself didn't get much sales. I just remember seeing on the report I was sending them, I would maybe get like 1 or 2 sales a month, and it was like 30 cents. Overall, it was not a great product, and even though I did make $10 on it, it was just exciting to finally get a free sample. And then over time, I got some other products, and this is all over email. So there's 2 ways to get free samples. One is over email, and then the second one is through Creator Connections, messaging brands on Creator Connections. A few months later, I got an offer for a cat litter box, which I was really excited for because on the product page itself, it showed that it actually was getting about 200 to 300 sales a month. This one, I also asked if they had a budget, and they were willing to pay me $25 for it, and it cost like $130. So that itself was a huge incentive to me because it's in the 4% category. So $130 times 4% is roughly $5. So I was like, okay, if I can get a couple sales with this, I think this will actually be a good one. And it actually turned out to be a pretty good product for me. I did pretty well with it over time. And of course, like, you never know how long products are going to last. And so I think eventually it fell off, but definitely made a couple $100 over like the years with it. So that was a good one. That was one of the good experiences. And then I really got into clothing and shoes. That's the one that I realized over time, these things are constantly getting removed, constantly getting returned. And those I did a lot in the beginning. And I quickly realized I do not like doing these because the brands will just remove them completely, change the ASIN. It's just a mess. I don't know if you've done any shoes.
I've done a little bit. It's funny because you mentioned you can actually recite exactly what samples you got. I'm sitting here like the whole time you're talking trying to think, what did I even do for my first sample? I can't remember. Something you didn't touch on that I thought was also worth mentioning is when do you actually start getting the samples as a newbie? I don't remember exactly how many weeks or whatnot it was, but when I first started, I think it was about 2 to 3 weeks after I put out my first few videos. It was when I first got my first few emails for offers. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned, they come through email, they can come through Instagram messaging, they can come through Creator Connections. If you're just getting started, you're not going to have access to Creator Connections just yet. That's something that will pop on, later on. You got to make a few sales first, but you'll get access to that pretty quick, and you'll start being able to message brands through Creator Connections. Now, you will not receive any inbound messages on Creator Connections. That's something worth noting as well. So you'll be doing strictly outbound, you sending the messages out to the brands. So that's a distinction I wanted to go ahead and put out there as well. But as you mentioned, clothing and shoes and fish tanks. I've done a little bit of everything myself, and I've gone out and I've done the same thing. Like, well, I don't have everything I need for this video. So at the very beginning, I bought things I needed for the video just because I was so excited to do it. And that's something that kind of fades over time as you start doing these samples. Being in this for 2 or 3 years now, I still know people that have been doing it as long as we have, and they're just as excited about the samples now as they were day one.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of us, our focuses shift as you go, and we're going to dive into this too in the next episode as well. As you go with the samples, you realize what works, what doesn't. So as Ben mentioned with clothes, those ASINs just don't stay long term. Very few things do.
Yeah.
However, you learn what works and what doesn't. And we both preach, your first 100 videos, you're trying to gain the experience. And that's not just experience with being in front of a camera. It's learning your audio, learning what works for you on camera, gaining confidence on camera. It's messaging brands and negotiating back and forth with them. It's learning what products you've done well on and why, what products tanked when you did that video and why. And as you go through the first couple months, you'll start realizing which samples weren't really worth your time. You get it, and the product falls apart in your hands from day one. I don't know how many products you can think of over the last couple of years now. I've got a half a dozen that I've reached back out to in email saying, hey, I can't do the product because it didn't even make it to my door in one piece, or I put it together and it's missing 10 parts and I refuse to do the video. That's something else you want to think about too, is don't sacrifice your integrity, your authenticity when you get a sample just to do a video. Your name goes on that. And if you recommend a product and it's not going to last the first week after they open it out of the box, it's going to get returned anyways. So you're not going to get the credit. So that's something that you need to think about too while you're doing these samples. So those are just a couple things I kind of wanted to touch on as well.
There's actually something that you said, which is very important. It's the sentiment of when you're getting those samples will change over time. Like you might be excited to get a bunch of products showing up to your door, but then quickly, months later, that feeling you might be disappointment when you see a bunch of packages showing up at your front door, because that means you have a bunch more work to do. And the thing is with free samples is most of the time those products aren't selling very well for most of these free samples. You're doing a bunch of this work and it ends up not leading to much results. And that's the thing that you have to learn over time, and that's what we both have gone through as well, is not every product is going to work and do well. And so that's where I've started to do less and less of them. And as you mentioned, I started with emails. So I got my first email for that water pump thing probably 3 months into making videos. I would start to see emails start to come through, and it was because of my social media that was tagged, which was my YouTube channel. Then they would go in, look for my email. But then there's also, if you have your Instagram tagged, they can message you on Instagram. I don't have mine tagged, so I don't get messages from there. But that's kind of how it starts, is after you get videos up, you start to get messages or emails coming in. And then Creator Connections is the second place too. And like Mike said, it's all outbound. You're reaching out to these brands. They aren't reaching out to you. I started to do that in early 2024, reaching out for products. And it was kind of that same feeling where some of them weren't getting very many sales, but I was like, oh, it has a 50% commission. So if I keep, even if I sold 2 of them, then I'd make some money. And I know Rob has said this before too, is like 50% of 0 is still 0. So like, it does not mean you're going to make a bunch of money with that. And so I started reaching out for things that weren't even selling. And then over time, I realized, okay, this is not a great use of my time. I'd rather be focused in on products that are actually showing sales. And so I've definitely shifted over time with samples.
When you start diving into the sample world too, obviously a lot of what comes into my inbox on a daily basis, once in a while I get something nice, and I've got a couple that I've agreed to just this week that are in the higher dollar range. You don't necessarily get those right off the bat unless you've just got really high production value right out of the gate. But as you're trying to figure this out and you start gaining confidence, your videos start getting better, you'll start attracting the sellers that actually have products that are worthwhile. But the problem is, when you start getting some of these inbounds, a lot of them are going to be for like a $10 flashlight. It's just stuff that, like Ben said, they don't move the needle. If you want to take them and you're excited about them, by all means, we did it too. So get your experience, and it's good to learn on a seller that's not a brand that you want to work with, that's like a dream brand to work with. Might as well get this stuff out of the way, get the experience on the ones that if you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. But as you gain the experience and you start reaching out to some of these other brands, especially if you're doing it through Creator Connections, there's some good stuff on there. But the problem is, most of those brands are looking for a certain demographic. It's either going to be a male or a female of a certain age, or someone that actually knows the product and knows how to explain the features and not just read off the listing features of what the item actually does.
Yeah.
So good for a good example. I mean, I do a lot of stuff in the tool and DIY world, and a lot of what I try to do, if I do those outbound emails, is I'm essentially giving them my authority within that email as to whether I've got experience in that niche. So I've got an automotive background. So I usually put that in the email. Listen, I used to be a mechanic. I've got a degree in this. I've got 4 or 5 years at a dealership working as a mechanic. I feel like I'm pretty well qualified to answer questions on this product. And it doesn't work every time, but a lot of times if they get to that email and it's not too long-winded, you'll probably win that product sample right off the bat just because you had the experience and the knowledge to be able to speak on that. Another good example is because I'm in the lineman world, but I'm also in the fiber optic world. I do a lot of fiber optic testing and whatnot on my job. There was a fiber optic OTDR, which none of you probably know what that is, but it's a test unit that essentially I can hook up to a live fiber or to a dead fiber and say, this is the distance, this is what that fiber optic line, the quality of that line is. And I explained in that email that I knew how to run these testers. I run them on a daily basis. I got that $600 sample pretty quick. Like they jumped on me. The minute I said that I had the authority and the knowledge to be able to speak on that product and show it in an environment being tested, none of you guys even have access to a live fiber room. So that's the thing. It's like I have access to something somebody else didn't. Try to find those nooks and crannies out there in those categories where people can't exist and get that sample. And you've got a good chance of not only getting that, but I make sales on that product. That's a $600 sample. And if they don't buy that one, there's different variations. So sometimes I get the cheaper one. Sometimes I get the more expensive one that I get commissioned for. But they gave me that kind of the middle of the line one. And those are $10, $20 commissions usually when I get those. And when I run a Creator Connection campaign, it's even more. I just sold one yesterday, actually. So that's just a couple of examples of things that you can kind of look for within the Creator Connection world.
Yeah, and you made a great point about use your authority in your messages to brands, in your templates, your email templates. Use the thing that's unique about you. If you've had a garden for 10 years and you're getting reached out for gardening products or you're reaching out to get those, mention that. Use that authority and experience that you have to your advantage because everyone has different experiences and a lot of people only include, oh, I have this many videos and stuff, but use the stuff that really is tailored towards you and your skills and make sure you let those brands know that.
So as we're getting these samples, you have to keep in mind the tax liabilities that come with the samples as well. Now, I'm not going to dive super deep into this because we just did a podcast episode a few weeks ago with Tina and we kind of went through the whole episode and it was nothing but tax. But I do want to go ahead just because at the beginning of the year, it's a good time to set good habits and get things going now. Every free sample you get is considered taxable income. And that's all based on like fair market value in terms of what that product is considered to be worth. Now there's speculation in terms of is a $20 item worth $10 because it was on sale or is it $30 because the price went up 6 months from now. So you kind of have to use your best judgment when it comes to fair market value. But that's something you definitely want to consider is if you're getting 1,000 samples throughout the year, technically you're supposed to claim those as taxable income. Does everybody do 100% of what they get? No, they don't. Use your best judgment. But at the same time too, if you're leaving an email trail and there's a digital footprint on all these samples and you were to get audited, keep in mind the power the IRS has and the fact that they can figure it out. So just keep that in mind going forward. And we won't touch on the taxes too much more than that. But if you are interested in that episode, just go back to a couple where I did the interview with Tina and we go a lot more in depth on that topic itself.
Yeah, we'd rather just be safe than sorry. Play it safe.
Yeah, but you'll find out really quickly. Ben and I kind of like to play by the rules. We don't really like to border on that risky environment and chances of losing accounts, things like that. So that's going to be what we preach going forward. Just use your best judgment. I think that's where we need to leave that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about outbound brand emails. This is reaching out to brands and just being able to message them and having some sort of template. I used to have a note on my phone where I would have a template that I would just copy and paste. And as I mentioned before, where it was just videos. That's what my template was, where it was just, this is my videos, this is how many videos I've done, this is the amount of sales that I've gotten, or my revenue for the last 30 days, which is all great, but it wasn't specific. And so that's where I tweaked it, where you want to have it specific to that brand. If it's a fitness brand, which I'm doing a lot more fitness stuff, say I have my own home gym, I've been building it for 3 years, I've had experience with lifting weights since I was 13 or whatever, and so I know all these different exercises or whatever it is. Make sure you're mentioning that in your template, in your messages to these brands, because those are going to stand out a lot more. If I just was copying and pasting the same message to 100 brands, I'm sure other people are doing the same thing, but you want to have yours stand out from the rest. And same with messaging on Creator Connections, but we're talking about emails right now.
Yeah, and something else worth noting on that, and we actually just touched on this a second ago, is when you're tailoring emails to brands. I think we've all tried the templates, and we started off with just super vague templates. We send the same one to every single brand.
Hmm.
And then you're noticing you're getting crickets back. Nothing's really popping. Having something where you can bring in that authority, that niche experience that you've got, like I just explained a second ago in these emails, is a great way to catch somebody's eye. Now, you don't want these emails to like linger on to be a storybook either. Also, keep in mind a lot of these brands are across seas. They're sending emails in the middle of the night while we're sleeping.
Hmm.
So the interaction back and forth, you might get 1 to 2 emails depending on what time you go to bed or what time you get up. And it can take 3 or 4 or 5 days to interact back and forth to come to a deal, especially if you're negotiating budgets as well. But if you can kind of clearly line out in the first email, it's going to take me 7 to 10 business days to get this product filmed and uploaded for you. As much information as you can be clear and concise on in that email from the get go. And I've even heard people say, well, they send their address from day one. Here's the address, ship it if you want to ship it.
Hmm.
I don't do that. I typically wait until I get the response back. That's personal preference there.
Yeah.
The fewer emails you can go back and forth on with a brand, the better. And it makes it a lot easier too when you're going back trying to look through the information to see what you charged or what the stipulations were for the video that they wanted, certain features they wanted. Instead of navigating through 10 emails, it's a lot easier to navigate through 3 or 4. So that's something I found pretty useful in the email
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And I actually just sent out an email. There's a walking pad that I was trying to get on Creative Connections from this brand for a long time. And I talked about this on some of the interviews I did. I reached out to them through Creative Connections like in May of last year. And then I sent a follow up message in July and then in September. And then I just bought it myself in October and had a lot of success with it. And so I actually reached out to them over email like a week ago and I sent out this just kind of like this is my experience. I had been trying to contact with them and thought that I could bring them a lot of sales and whatnot. And so I wanted to show that. And so I calculated, made it a sales report for the past 3 months and basically sent that over to them. And then I got a response from them saying, wow, this is awesome. We'd love to work with you. And like, we'd love to collaborate with you and asking for my social media. And so I sent that out. Having that tailored towards me and the skill set that I have and showing that I've already like converted and like have done things for them, showing the value that I provide all up front is going to set me apart from other emails that they're getting just randomly.
So think about when you're getting these emails yourself, when you're looking at a seller reaching out to you, how many emails are just like, hey, I have many products to send you looking for long-term collaboration, and that's the end of the email. I immediately delete those. I'm looking for something that's pretty well thought out. Even if they're sending it to 100 different influencers, that's fine. But give me all the details that you could possibly give me on that item, what you're looking for. Do you want just one video? Do you want it posted to what platform? When I see that, to me, it tells me the brand's a lot more put together.
Hmm.
So flip the script on that a little bit and you look at when you're sending an email to a brand, don't be that person that's so vague that they're like, hey, send me a sample, please, and here's my address. Give them something to go on. Like I said, I'm going to harp on this a little bit. Make sure it's clear and concise. Like, you don't want to send them a book. They're not going to have time when they're sifting through thousands of emails to read 10 paragraphs from you. But if you can work in conjunction with like ChatGPT or something and say, here's my thoughts I want to get in this email, help me use the fewest amount of words possible, essentially. Get that email down to a concise letter. And also keep in mind, like I said, these are Chinese brands. There's also a language barrier there. So when they see these emails, it's in English and they have to translate it. How many responses you see that come through, and you could tell they were scripted by ChatGPT, and that's fine because they're putting it in English for me, so I don't have to translate it. But when we're sending that email to them, I'm assuming they're having to use a translation software. So just keep that in mind. I mean, make it easy on them, and they don't need your whole life story, but they need enough information to determine whether you're the right fit for their product or not. Especially if you're reaching out for things like walking pads or things that are a couple $100 or $1,000 even. We want to come off professional. We want to give them kind of a game plan. If you research that brand in terms of what campaigns they may have coming up, so if you follow their social media, for example, you know in the spring that a lot of people are going to be pushing to do like e-bikes or garden tillers or grills, smokers. If you hit them a couple months ahead of time, say, hey, I know you're probably going to have a big campaign coming up. I just looked at last year. It looks like you had a big push on this one model over here. Are there any new models you're wanting to push this year? Are you wanting to do another push or another sale campaign on the same model from last year? I'd love to be a part of that. Those are good ways to kind of get your foot in the door, show you've done some research, and you know a little bit about that brand. That's worked for me a few times.
Yeah.
That way.
Biggest thing is just be professional over email. Keep things clear and concise. Make sure you're letting them know how long it'll take you to get the video up. Make sure you're keeping them updated just the amount of time like that I've heard from brands that people don't tell them, or like that other people aren't telling them when they receive the product, and like keeping them updated. Make sure to update them as soon as you get the package arrives. They know how many days it's going to take you. You're sending over the video file once it's posted. You're sending them everything that you need as soon as possible.
That's a great way to get a repeat collaboration out of a
Yeah.
brand is if you do everything Ben just said. A lot of times, if I do everything right and I've got a video that performs well and they can track the sales on it, I'm getting an email 2-4 weeks later, maybe 2 months later, saying, "Hey, I got another product. This one's new. Would you be interested in it? Or this one did really well. Do you want to do this one?" And a lot of the repeat brands that I like working with that do really well for me almost every time I get an item from them are because I've kept that relationship sound. So something else we also probably need to talk about too, and this goes in the email, but this also kind of alludes into the next segment we were wanting to kind of go through. And in some instances, a lot of these brands will have contracts. If you don't want to give up your usage rights, make sure that's in the email. Like, this is just for me to post the video to Amazon and YouTube or to Facebook, wherever it is you're posting. Make sure those are clear, because a lot of times those brands will try to get more out of you. And they'll say, "Well, I wanted you to post that to YouTube too." Well, if you didn't mention you weren't doing it in the prior email, you're kind of in a gray area. Do you just do it to be nice, so you don't upset them and you can get that other collaboration? Or do you kind of hold your ground and say, "No, I'm not going to post that there. We didn't agree to that." So the more in detail on your terms and clear you are on their terms, the better the collaboration is going to go for you. And I've actually, something else you got to watch too is if you've got multiple YouTube channels, sometimes they know about both of them and they want the bigger channel.
Mm-hmm.
But if that channel is not meant for reviews or not meant for that topic or that item, then you could upset them there too. And you don't want to do that. We're going to put you over here on the smaller channel. Make sure you tell them exactly where you're going to put them at.
Yeah, and we just talked about this last night. Someone mentioned a great idea of if they do want you to put on the larger channel, then you can, instead of doing a dedicated video, if it doesn't make sense, just do a little short 20-30 second like ad for their product within your video, so that you're keeping it whatever your niche is for that bigger channel.
Yeah, because that can absolutely confuse an audience on YouTube. Is if you're constantly doing stuff on camping or the outdoor stuff, something like that, but then you put on there like a hair dryer or a software, like a VPN software, something like that. Wait a second, that's not what this channel's about. And you can really confuse an audience quick. But if you do, a 30-second or 2-minute segment in a video on a mattress, people are used to that already. A lot of your bigger YouTubers are doing those kind of commercials inside of their video, and it doesn't seem as out of place. As long as it still aligns with your integrity and what you want yourself to be known about, those are absolutely great ways to implement those products into other videos.
Yeah. So the next segment we want to talk about is actually fees and figuring out budgets from brands and getting paid for the work that we do. And so starting out, I just remember people were saying $10-$20 is kind of typical for what you're asking for. And that is the case for when you're new. And as you grow and over time, as you get better, you can start to increase those prices for what you charge. And when it comes to charging, you just have to make sure that you're on the same page with the brand and that you're letting them know up front, like, "Hey, do you have any budget for this?" Ask them what their budget is. Typically, they'll always say lower, and so they're kind of trying to undercut you a little bit. And so if you have a certain amount, just go a little bit higher to see what they respond with. That's typically what I do. So if I'm like $50 is kind of where I want to be, I'll be like, "Oh, I'm looking for like 80, and then seeing what they respond with. And I'll take $40, for example, too. So be willing to like negotiate by having a little bit of leeway with your range that you're looking for.
When you're newer, obviously, you're probably not going to be asking for much at all. Now, there's no reason why you still couldn't try to get $10 out of them as a brand new influencer. But and even to this day, I'll still take once in a while, especially if I've got a gap in my schedule, I'll take a 10 or 15 or $20 deal if it's quick enough and I know I can get it in and out, of my schedule pretty quick. But a lot of times what I'll end up doing too in my emails, they typically won't even say this is a paid collaboration. So that's the first thing I respond back with is, "Yeah, it sounds great. This is an exciting product." With my schedule being so full at this point in time, I am prioritizing my paid collaborations at this time. So whether I can take this or not, it's going to be up to whether we can come to terms with a decent rate. And I try to get them to say the rate first. Because if they come back with, "Oh yeah, we'll pay you $200, I was probably going to say 50. So yeah, give me that 200. But if they come back with $10, then I'll say, "Hey, typically I'm around $50 range for an item like this in this category. Can you get me to the $50?" And go from there. Sometimes I might even say, "Hey, 75, even though 50 is where I want to settle," just to get them to come to that $50 mark, because otherwise you might be agreeing on 30. So it's kind of that whole car salesman, you got to kind of learn how to negotiate back and forth and figure out what you're going to be okay with on that product. And I also keep in mind, if it's a $300 item that you're already getting, maybe it's still worth it to do it for free. If
Mm-hmm.
you are pretty familiar with marketplace in your area or eBay, whatever sales means you want to use, and you can get $200 out of that item. If they don't agree to the flat rate of $50, you can still get $200 out of the deal. It's still kind of worth your time, in my opinion. So might as well go ahead and go for it. Now, you got to play with the metrics and stuff as far as what that item's going to sell. If it's just zeros across the board, it's selling 20 a month or something. Look at it and see what kind of time you feel like you're throwing into that item. Is that $200 flat rate fee okay with you?
Yep.
Just to kind of knock out a quick video. But if it's selling $1,000 a month, it's $200, and they're not willing to pay you a collab fee, take it.
Yep.
Go, because you're probably going to sell a couple of them. You're going to make money on the item when you sell it. It's still a decent deal. So every deal is going to be a little different. I would not lock yourself personally into a cookie cutter deal. I see a lot of people where they're coming out with websites now, and it's awesome. I think it's a great plan to have like a kind of a media website where you can kind of refer all your brands to. Mm-hmm. But they're putting pricing on there saying $50 for this item, $100 for this. Some of these brands would pay triple that, guys. I mean, if you're locking yourself into $200, $300 usage rights on every single video, you're painting yourself in a corner that, to me, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So
Yeah.
I would not recommend doing that. And not to mention where you are now, with in terms of your audience and what views you're getting. A month from now, you could be double that. And then a month later, you could be double that. And your fees should always be changing with the progress you're making month to month in terms of your audience size. And I'm speaking more to YouTube than I am Amazon when it comes to this. Don't lock yourself into a one-time fee and to where a brand can come to your website and see $50. And oh, yeah, that's great. And then they expect that from here on out. That's not how it's going to work. A month from now, my prices may be different.
Yeah, and for example, I used to work with a furniture brand that would send me bed frames, couches, chairs, and I would have to set them all up. And they would also pay me $50 for them. And this was a brand that was like kind of popular, but it was kind of the same thing with clothing where those ASINs would disappear after a few months and just be gone. And so at the time I was excited because $50 take me like an hour or whatever to assemble wasn't a huge deal. But then over time I was like, this is not worth like $50 because these things aren't selling it any longer, and now I got all this stuff and then I gotta either sell it. I actually gave a lot of it away. My two brothers now have new bed frames, and my parents have a couple chairs that I've gotten for free from this brand and whatnot over the years. But I quickly realized that I just didn't like the fact that these weren't selling. And so it's kind of like you said, you have to be willing to adapt and change your ways. So I could have either increased my rate if I wanted to continue working with them, or I just basically stopped working with them because it was on products that weren't selling. And that's the thing we really want to like drive home here is free samples are great, but the thing that's most important is the sales that they're providing.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to come into play where, like you said, if you're charging $100 and let's say the product sells 1,000 a month, maybe you would be willing to take it for free because it's actually selling. So that's where it really impacts. And so over the years, basically, I've really stepped away from free samples besides a couple brands that I work with over email. And that's the thing that I really focus on is brand collaborations through email. I don't do as many through Creator Connections itself. And a cool thing that I work with these brands is every month I work with 3 that are now paying me bonuses at the end of the month for my sales for that month. So I basically compile a sales report, send it over to them, and they're paying me a bonus of 5% up to 7% for the brands. And one of these is exercise equipment, and they own a few different brands within Amazon. So I just compile all those different brand names, send them over a report. And last year, it started out with like I was making an extra 150 to 250 bucks a month. But the cool thing is, as I hit certain tiers, if I hit $5,000 in revenue, then they pay me an additional $150 on top of the 5%. So if I hit 5,000, I'd make $250 from the 5%, and then they pay me an additional 150, totaling 400. So all of last year, I made about 150 to 200 from this brand up until October. November hit, I hit my very first time hitting that 5,000 in shipped revenue. And then so I made like 500 bucks that month. Now the next target is if I hit 10,000 in shipped revenue, they'll pay me additional $350 on top of the 5%. So I actually hit that in December for the first time. So I got a payout of about $900 from this one brand for December and just in bonuses. So that's kind of where I've started to focus a lot more is all these products that I'm working with these brands are ones that are selling. They're popular. And so that's really where I've shifted towards working with brands that have products that sell. And they're the ones that are building these relationships where they're willing to pay me. The other ones are like portable chargers, and I'll make 7% with them. And so since they're cheaper items, it's like maybe an extra $20 to $40 a month that I'm receiving from them. But it's still something, and it's worth my time to make these videos on products that are selling and earning those little bonuses.
I don't know if you guys heard that or not. He said almost an extra $1,000 in the month of December, and essentially that's no different than like a Creator Connections campaign. But I mean, if you think about in terms of the YouTube world, and I've mentioned this many times about with Creator Rewards, where we're getting a bonus from Amazon for shipped revenue. I mean, you keep that in mind. You can still get that Creator Rewards shipped revenue bonus by putting that same stuff that you're putting on YouTube that we're talking about, and you're still getting a bonus from the brand. So once again, it's one of those double dip opportunities where the more fitness equipment that you're selling in that deal, or like the portable chargers where 7%, it all adds up. And I used to be so against sending sales reports to brands when I first started, and I still in a way am a little leery of doing so. But if you've got brands that you can establish as reputable, and they're going to be ones you can, and it might take a little bit of time to feel out that that relationship that first month. If you've got some higher priced equipment like Ben's getting, that can add up quick. And those bonuses, I mean, that's what it's all about, is trying to find more income streams and diversifying across not just Amazon, but YouTube. But now you've got a brand paying you close to $1,000 a month. And then the Creator Awards, if you can get that, these things add up so quick. And then you wonder how can me or Ben get to $10,000 a month in revenue, or I'm sorry, in income? It's like that. That's how it is. You add up 4 or 5 of these income streams, and they add up quick. I mean, it's amazing what we can do. And if you treat this like a business instead of a hobby, and you're not jumping in and out every other month when you've just got time to put out a couple of videos, if you take it seriously, this can grow really quick.
Yeah, and the point I want to make about these bonuses is every single brand, they've contacted me through email. So those are the ones that are paying these bonuses. These are the ones that have products that are selling a lot more. And so I've had this relationship with the brand that does fitness equipment for over 2 years now. And I've done a lot of reviews for products that they have. And I've also bought a lot of products that they have and reviewed them myself. So it wasn't all them sending me stuff. It was stuff that I purchased personally. So it's important to be willing to work hard and like be patient for those types of relationships, because they will come, but it takes time, and you have to have authority and be professional and all those things that we talked about before.
And something you just mentioned that I want to piggyback on is buying the products. So if you, and I've done this a handful of times myself, I bought something strictly for the reason that I want it. It's just something I want, not because I'm going to do a review on it. It's Amazon thought only. But that alone, doing that video and doing a good job on the video, opened the door for me to that brand where they reached out to me later on down the road. I had no clue it was going to happen, but I've been able to do that multiple times now. And now I'm working with brands that I wanted to work with because I believed in those products this whole time. And having those relationships where I've been able to build on those, and as my channels grow, I know for a fact that these brands pay collab fees in addition to. So some of them where I started off working with them for free, I'm now able to get some of these incentives like you're talking about, or a flat rate fee on every video, and they add up over time. So there's multiple angles you can come at this. These free samples are great when you first get going. And like I said, it opens the door to so many things. But then you start diving into some of the stuff me and Ben have been talking about the last 20 minutes here. That's where it becomes worth it, in my opinion. That's where everything kind of starts clicking and coming together. Now, when we're talking about YouTube, let's go ahead and dive into a little bit more of the YouTube side of things, and then let's talk about deep linking as well and what that means, because I've seen a lot of questions on that popping up here recently. So the first thing we're going to dive into is YouTube. And if you don't have a channel yet, we talked about in the last episode a little bit too. I don't think YouTube's going to be for everybody. There's certain creators and certain formats that are going to perform better just because longer form content tends to perform better on YouTube. If you're interested in starting a YouTube channel and you haven't done so yet, what I'm going to do, instead of trying to spend the next 15 minutes telling you how to set up and create a YouTube channel, I'm going to link into the show notes as well as within the communities a couple good videos that I found that already go over this very well in detail. They'll walk you through step by step on how to actually set these YouTube channels up the right way. But what I do want to talk about a little bit, I guess to finish out the rest of this podcast today, is once you get your YouTube channel set up and going, there are multiple ways to approach the descriptions and the titles and the thumbnails and things like that, as well as deep linking services that you can use. Now, when it comes to the deep linking, that's something that I don't think people fully understand what that's actually doing. Now, when you obviously on Amazon, when you go to an item, at the top, once you become an associate, it gives you the site stripe link, and you can just post that wherever it is you want to actually put the links, whatever platform you're using. It doesn't have to just be YouTube. However, there's really no way to track the clicks, be able to track what country clicked the link, or any. There's no metrics.
And it takes you to Safari and not directly to the Amazon app.
So it takes you to Safari instead of your native app. So those are the big key features right there to deep linking. Now, there's several of these companies out there. You'll hear a lot of us talk about Genius Links. Another one that just came on the scene here recently is URL View, which is actually a feature built into Viral View, which most of us are either using Viral View or Oink nowadays. So they do have their own deep linking service as well. It's up and coming. I still kind of like Genius Links just because it's around a little bit longer. I think it's a little bit more built out and robust. It is an extra expense every month that I do pay for on top of Viral View. So that's something to keep in mind. But what I found is I think for cost per click and what we're getting from Genius Links, it's probably the cheapest one out there, and I think it's the best. Now, there is things like Post Tap out there, Lasso. Lasso is a little bit more for like blogging. It's not really going to be for like the YouTube side of things. And I do think there are certain companies that do deep linking better based on their demographic and kind of where people plan to post. So kind of do your research on that when you're looking into which one might be right for you. But for B and Ben, Genius Links is what we tend to use on our deep linking. And all we're doing is taking the site stripe link off of Amazon. You're pasting that over to Genius Links, which creates essentially another link. But what that's doing is now we're tracking the analytics so we can see how many people clicked the link, what country it came from, and why does that matter? Well, if I'm looking at my metrics for the month and I see that I've got 1,000 clicks coming from Brazil, I'm not even in the associates program for Brazil right now. Mm-hmm. So that tells me I probably need to go ahead and sign up for the Brazil associates program and take advantage of some of those sales that I could potentially be getting from that country. So that's one thing. Second thing is we preach on diversity and affiliate programs and like not just doing Amazon. So as we kind of get our heads wrapped around Amazon and we start diving into YouTube, we're like, okay, where else can I capitalize on this? Best Buy's got affiliate programs, B&H Photo, Lowe's, Home Depot. There's so many different companies out there that offer these affiliate programs. Well, you can tie those into Genius Links all together and essentially create a landing page for the one item. So if that one item might be a Canon DSLR camera, maybe there's 4 different places you can buy that from. Well, if that person's dead set on the fact they don't want to buy that camera from Amazon, you put all that work into that video to review that camera, but they want to buy it from Best Buy for whatever reason. I would still rather get a lower commission from Best Buy because their commissions aren't that great through their partner program. I'd rather get 2% than 0% because if they're going to buy it from Best Buy anyways, I don't want to lose the sale. So having that landing page pop up, and it's not like the biggest, fanciest page ever, but it shows you a picture of the product. It gives you the choices down at the bottom that you can pick from based on what I'm signed up through for affiliate. And you got a lot better chance and opportunity of earning a commission from another partner program than if just Amazon alone. And not to mention if Amazon's out of stock, which commonly happens when I watch YouTube videos. I go to click on Amazon, I'm like, shoot, it's out of stock right now. I click on B&H Photo. Hey, they've still got it in stock. I can get it on Thursday. That's a great way to present somebody a second option when it's out of stock somewhere. And then not to mention, on top of that, Genius Links also monitors link health as well. So if an item does go off and say that the ASIN is no longer available or the item's out of stock, it lets you know on the homepage of Genius Links so that you can go through and fix that link or see if maybe they just switched ASINs or if that product's no longer available. You could maybe link to something that's pretty much dead similar to what that item was. And that video you did 2 years ago, you can simply just replace that one link within Genius Links. It does not change the link that Genius Link created for you. So you don't have to go back and go through the 15, 20, 30 videos that you posted that same link to over time. It changes the link for you, and that's it. That's all you did. So it makes things so much more streamlined. And for $6 a month is all it costs for Genius Links. Now, as your clicks increase, you'll get to the point where if you've got 3,000 clicks, your first 1,000 clicks are included in the $6 a month price. Once you get up, they start charging you per 1,000 clicks. So even like right now, with where I'm at right now, 3,000 clicks a month maybe, I'm spending $13 to $18 a month. It's not the end of the world. It's still pretty cheap for what I'm getting back in returns on the offsite sales.
Yeah, especially comparing to some of the other ones. One of the ones we were looking at is called URL Genius, and basically they charge 2 cents per click. And I was just doing the math. 1,000 clicks would be $20 versus $6 with Genius Links. and it just gets more expensive. Genius Leak, $350 for every additional 1,000 clicks. So this is my first month being over 1,000, and I'm gonna have to pay $950. But it's always gonna be worth whatever amount that you're paying. The biggest thing that these deep linking does is just captures as many sales as possible. Otherwise, you would have missed way more of these sales. It takes you to Safari and then it directs you to sign in to Amazon. The people aren't going to do that. They're going to just exit it and then just go on Amazon and search it, and then you just missed out.
As easy as possible.
Yep. And then you just missed out on the commission. So
Yep.
having it go directly to Amazon, directly to the product, is, like you said, easy as possible.
It's linking internationally as well. So
Yes.
not to mention, when you click the Genius links, if someone does watch it from Brazil or Mexico or Australia, all of the site stripe links that are appropriate for that country are linked. So it knows to take them to Australia because that's where they're at. And you may not get credit for it if you're not signed up for that associate program, but it still links them and takes them to the product. It doesn't end up being a broken link. That's a big deal to me.
Yeah, and this month is my best offsite month. And from Canada, I've made $82, which is way higher than normal. I'm normally like 10 to maybe 30. So it makes me want to go to all these different countries and start to accept or make an account for them just to have, just in case, because you don't know how many clicks and just sales that you're missing from different countries for certain products. So
I actually did a podcast last year in the spring with Jesse Lakes, who's the CEO of Genius Links. So if you are actually a little bit more curious than what me and Ben just laid out for you about Genius Links and what they're about, you could go back and listen to that episode as well. And that was a pretty good and still relevant to this day episode at the same time. Now, talking about this, you're plastering links all across all your platforms. Something that people commonly miss, and this will get you kicked out of the program, not having your platforms properly linked in the back end under your account settings with Amazon. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, and your head's spinning right now as to what I just said, if you go into your account settings in Amazon, and this is per store ID, so you have to do this for offsite, on-site, any other country you do, you have to go in and enter this multiple times. It's a little frustrating, it's a little tedious, but you have to do it to stay compliant, is if you're going to post on Facebook, and you're going to post on YouTube, and you got a blog, and you've got Instagram, and you've got a Pinterest account, all those need to be linked in that store ID under the account settings. There'll be a spot where you see two boxes and essentially it says enter your websites or platforms that you're going to post to. Anywhere you post a link, you have to disclose where those links are going to be posted. When Amazon does any kind of audit down the road, if you've not complied with this and you've posted to some personal website or business website that was not listed, your account is at risk and you can be removed from the program. Am I clear? Did you guys hear that okay? Because that is a big deal. That is something you absolutely want to do. That is probably just as important as making sure you're following FTC disclosures, because that's the next thing I'm going to hit on, is when you're posting to said platforms, whether it be Facebook or YouTube, affiliate disclaimers have to be posted on every video or in your profile. It's a little different per platform, but make sure you're very familiar with the FTC agreements and disclosures that you have to go through. If you get a product for free, it needs to be disclosed. This product was given to me by the brand in exchange for this review. However you want to say it, it just has to be said and documented in the description of every video. Did I say that clear enough?
Yeah, we've seen countless accounts getting kicked out because of that. You'll get those emails saying these media links weren't properly disclosed, and that's because they didn't have that website or whatever thing that they posted on their back end. And so you really need to make sure that you have it sorted out. That's the thing that I hesitated for making a YouTube channel, because I was so scared of doing it wrong. And so you make sure, like, watch a video like the proper way to get it set up, and so that you're not making any mistakes, you're properly disclosing, you're doing everything right.
I don't want to scare anybody away from this, especially if you're new. It's not as hard as it may sound when I'm saying it, but it does take some diligence. You need to at least learn the workarounds of what we're doing here to keep these accounts compliant. The ones that are spending the time going through the Creator Connection Academy, I'm sorry, not Creator Connection, the Amazon Creator Academy deal that you can go through. If you spend some time in there, it's actually a pretty good resource in terms of what to do for what Amazon expects, like the do's and don'ts. Then you go to the FTC disclosure. This thing's posted everywhere across every group. If you need it, let me know. I'll send you a link to it. It's not a big deal to find. But read through that, spend some time. They do a really good job of telling you what they're expecting. And it's just a compliance thing. That's all we have to do. As long as you're disclosing the fact that you're going to make money from the video, if you click on a link, that's all we're really after, is that it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. I think that we've driven that nail in pretty well, beat that horse to death. If you have any other questions, by all means, reach out in the community. We'd be happy to go more in depth on that, because that is a big deal. And that's probably one of the leading things we see people having problems with when it comes to accounts getting terminated or suspended, or seeing screenshots of emails where if you don't get this in compliance within so many days, you're removed. And people become very lost. Even some of the new people, like they'll just take off running and they'll put 50 videos out before they even get their approval for the first three.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we have to learn the rules first before we just take off running full speed. As long as you know the foundations, you're going to be good and you'll be in this for a long time. There's a lot of money to be made, but you can screw it up very quickly at the beginning if you aren't diligent about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go spend the rest of this episode before we jump off here for the day, just going through some things on YouTube. And I know you had some different things I think you concentrate on when you do your YouTube videos in terms of setup. I've got a few of myself. So something that I've watched multiple creators when I've watched YouTube videos in terms of how to set up these videos when you're doing them is making sure your SEO is on point for what the video is about. And that even comes down to the file name itself. If you're doing any kind of video edit, obviously it might be image 5780.mp4 or something like that. If it's just a generic file name, then change that to like Frigidaire refrigerator or whatever the thing might be. Make that title for your file what the video is about. And that's one more version of SEO that you can implement to help YouTube figure out what that video is about. Do it for your thumbnail as well. So a lot of my videos and my thumbnails have matching names. One is just going to be .jpeg, the other is going to be .mp4. And when they upload to YouTube, that part's done. That's something that people commonly miss, I think. Mm-hmm. But then going through your YouTube title in terms of in your descriptions, your YouTube tags, there's hashtags you can put in. All these things matter. So if you're just simply uploading a video, not even putting a thumbnail on it, you throw a very generic title on there. I still to this day find videos where the title is the file name. They didn't even change the title. Yep. I'm like, how are they supposed to find your video other than YouTube going through the transcript of what was said in the video? You've made it hard on YouTube to even find the video and recommend it to the right audience.
Yeah.
By doing all this homework up front, it makes it so much easier for the video to succeed.
Yeah. And I've personally started to put less in my title for search based, but more put it in the description. And so, for example, one of my recent videos that's doing well is I tried 7 budget walking pads in 2025. That was the title because I wanted it to be a little bit more browse or suggested focused where people see it and like they're like, oh, that's interesting. I want to see what he did. But in the description, I put every single name of the walking pad review. And so if it is SEO, which about 50% of the views that are coming in from that video are from search, it could be from all these different search terms. Like they looked up a specific one that I reviewed, review, and then my video could show up. So like don't discount the description. That's a really great place to put these SEO terms and all those things. And then of course, make sure you have your FTC disclosure at the bottom and make sure you're having that and also disclosing it audibly with at the beginning of your video if it is something that was gifted to you. So if I'm comparing 7 walking pads, but one of them was gifted to me, then I have to make sure I'm mentioning that, well, this one was gifted to me, but the rest of them I bought myself. Like, make sure you're disclosing that.
Yeah. And as you scroll down through the list of things that YouTube gives you that you can fill out for your video, you will see a spot where it says YouTube tags. And that it's not as important to put hashtags in your description like it used to be. I still put a few. I think it's just because I've watched so many videos over time and people are still doing it. I don't see it as being hurtful. So I'll put maybe 5 or 6 hashtags in my description still at the very, very bottom. But the YouTube tags section, as you scroll down, is something that you absolutely want to fill out because that is, once again, just one more way that YouTube can find you and what you're going to put there. So if it's a tent, what's somebody going to search that could potentially pop that tent up in their search results? Maybe it's best tents of 2026. Maybe it's how to stay dry camping. I mean, just think, it's not just one keyword. It's actually groups or phrases of words that people would type in. Maybe it's a jump starter, best jump starter for diesel trucks. I mean, you could type that in your YouTube tag and somebody's probably going to take that phrase if you get the right phrases and it'll pop your video up just based on those tags alone. So those are absolutely great to fill out. And then as you're scrolling through there as well, there's going to be a box in there. It's towards the top, right below description. That I can't remember what the exact wording says, but it says something about this item. It was sponsored or endorsed or whatever. It's just a checkbox that you need to check on. If it's a free sample, you need to be checking that. And what that does is as the video is playing for your viewers at the top left-hand corner, it'll say this product is sponsored or whatever it says up there at the top. Just letting somebody know this item was given to you or you were paid for the collaboration. But that's just one of those I guess, FTC type things that you need to do to keep that video compliant. And if YouTube or Amazon ever come back and for whatever reason audit you, you've done everything compliance wise that you're supposed to do on that video.
It's a common thing to see other reviewers not disclosing, and it's pretty frustrating to see, like, even just in the home gym equipment review space. I see it all the time where I'm as a viewer, I don't know if it was something gifted or something they purchased because they're not mentioning it. But I'm assuming a lot of the stuff is stuff that they were gifted. I just think it's a lot better to make sure you're disclosing it. You're also building a lot more trust with your audience that you're growing, and they're just automatically going to trust you a lot more and say, okay, this guy, at least he's being upfront about it, and it's different from other reviewers in your space.
So a lot of this can be done using like ChatGPT, something like that, where I try to make it sound as original or authentic to me. Like I wrote it. I want it to sound like I wrote it in the end. I don't want to spend 30 minutes writing a description for every single video I do, especially when I'm putting out 3 or 4 or 5 of these things a week, or some people might even do more than that. So use the tools available to you that are out there to save time when you can. But ChatGPT is a great way to take the information that you might have, plug it in, and it can give you and spit out a formula for you, or a format that is something that's repeatable and you can use on a lot of your videos. And a lot of things you can do too. You're going to put your deep link in the description, but another great way for that to be seen for someone that doesn't go to the description is to put that in your comments, and then put that, so say check this item out here in your comments, pin that comment to the top so your comment stays at the top at all times. And it's just one more way for someone to see that link, click on it, and it'd be visible. There's a lot of people on mobile, they may not even click on the description. So by having the comments, people live in the comment section. That's a great way to get that link seen. Something else we haven't talked about as far as the setup goes on the YouTube stuff as well is there is A/B testing. Now, a lot of you guys may or may not want to even consider doing that, but what we've started to preach a lot as well is you can do a video on a review item, and it's very easy to film a quick intro, a quick outro, and maybe even a call to action within that video. You could save that as your YouTube formatted video, then immediately go back. You could take out the 30 seconds or whatever it took you to do those outros or those call to actions. Save that video file as a separate file. That's going to go on Amazon, because on Amazon you cannot have call to actions, can't have the outros, you can't send people to another place outside of Amazon. But it's very easy to format the video one way and then take parts out and make that separate video. Well, as you're uploading those to YouTube, the next thing you can do to kind of give yourself an edge over somebody else is have 3 titles that you're going to test. Have 3 thumbnails if you want to put the effort in to do that. And I've messed around with this a little bit. What I'm finding on my A/B testing that I'm doing so far is I'll put up 3 thumbnails or 3 titles, and then after 10 days or so of it doing tests for me, I'm seeing like a 33% split across all 3. So one of them beats the others out by like 2 to 5%. So I haven't quite figured out the formula in terms of which one's just going to be a rock star title or whatnot yet. What I do find handy though is I subscribe to vidIQ, and if I put my title and my thumbnail into vidIQ and look at it, and it gives me back a pretty good score of like 80, 90 or above, I'm pretty confident that's going to perform well for me, and I'll just run with that. Now, it's an added subscription to the oinks and the viral views that you're already probably playing with and subscribed to in the first place, so it may not be in your budget right away. But that is another tool of the trade that I found extremely useful now that I'm 2.5 years into this.
Yeah, and I think for me, figuring out by testing, I haven't done a lot with A/B testing, but I tried 7 budget walking pads as like a title format. Now I can replicate that for other titles in the future because that video is doing well for me. So I tried 9 adjustable benches or budget adjustable benches, make a video like that. So now I have an idea of something that might work for other products as well and kind of run with it. So always just be testing out different formats and seeing what works and just like continue working with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point. So I know this episode probably hasn't been like super sexy and just all the awesome things that everybody wants to talk about, but there's a lot of information in here. I feel like it's really relevant in terms of what I keep seeing being repeated in terms of questions on the comments. So that's what the purpose of this episode was really for, was to kind of nail a few of those down, see if we can help you guys kind of point you in the right direction on a few of those things. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful for you today. As we mentioned in the last episode and this one as well, we do have the new Creators Leverage Guild community that launched basically a week ago. So far, we've been off, I'd say, to a pretty good start. We've had a lot of good conversations in that group. We're constantly adding resources and new content to that group. If you haven't made your way over there just yet, we'd love to have you part of that community. We've got live events that we're doing. Actually, there's 4 of them a month. There's going to be 2 Q&As for folks that are a little bit more beginner level So we've got those going twice a month. And once you get logged into the free tier, you can see those Q&As. We've also got 2 live strategy calls we're doing a month as well. And those are going to be within that paid tier. Now, if you haven't actually checked out the website yet, the paid tier is $30 a month. And that gets you access to several spaces you don't have access to otherwise. But then that also gives you access to those strategy calls as well. And we've got a pretty good group in there already. We just had a meeting last night, actually, for a matter of fact, and it's a great conversation.
Another one
had.
tonight.
Yeah, and then another one tonight. Yeah, tonight is the Q&A, and that is for the beginners. This podcast won't come out before that Q&A, but there will be another one after that. And like I said, there's 2 a month of those. So hop in the community. All that stuff's listed in there. We'd love to have you guys in there. And there's a lot of great resources that I've already put in there as well for the beginners that you can thumb through. Other than that, I think that's where we'll leave you. We'll catch you guys out there. Make it a great week.